Last week, we took a deeper dive into Unity's first principle. God, absolute good, and unconditional love is the one constant presence and power in our lives and in the world. In short, the universe is benevolent, and every situation we encounter is for us, not against us. As seminarians, we were asked to write a paper describing our personal credo. A credo statement is one's core beliefs. The first question we were to address was, what is God? Unity's first principle is a profound answer to that question. The second question we were asked to address was, what am I? The second principle, all human beings are made in the image of God. Therefore, our essence is also goodness and love, is Unity's response to that question. Have you ever stared into your eyes in a mirror and looked beyond the reflection of your body, beyond the circumstances of your life, beyond your ethnic origin? Have you ever looked deep into yourself and wondered, what am I? If so, you are not alone. Unity's textbook, The Quest, tells us that the tree of life is swarming with people searching for a clue. Climbing up one side are scientists, observing, measuring, weighing, and calculating. What is the smallest particle of nature? What is energy? What part of us is matter? What part is water? What part is empty space? And what's in the empty space? These questions lead to answers, which lead to more questions, which lead to more answers. Climbing the opposite side of the tree are the theologians and philosophers, asking, what is the nature of human beings? What is truth? Where did we come from? Why are we here? Their questions lead to answers, which lead to more questions, which lead to answers and more questions. The question, what am I, is at the heart of all inquiry. It is the key to understanding why we do what we do. We're all searching for our true self, right? Unity's second principle is like a finger pointing to the truth we seek. I used to think the search for truth was initiated by the question, who am I? Which leads to such responses as, I am Catherine, I'm an engineer, I'm a parent, right? But all these are inadequate because they are merely descriptions of our persona, our personality, roles, and titles. They do not get to the essence of our personhood, do they? Change your name, change your job, get married, get unmarried, and it still does not change the essence of who and what we are. In the unchangeable core of our being, we are creations of God. We often describe ourselves as children of God, and I've actually resisted that way of saying it. But I think I have a different understanding now. Because if we are God's offspring, it must mean that we have a divine essence just as our brother Jesus did. This is not to say that we are God any more than the wave is the ocean, but the created must always reflect the nature of its creator, right? The wave is born of the ocean. You could even say that each wave is a child of the ocean. It can never be the ocean, but still it is made of the same stuff and can never be separate from it. Do you see what I'm saying? Like the wave is to the ocean, we are to God. Think for a moment of the immense journey that life has taken in its evolution from its earliest forms to where it is today. From a single-celled amoeba to complex human beings, it has been a slow, steady march toward perfection. Through the millennia, the Creator has been perfecting the vehicle through which to express itself. An old Kalahari proverb says that God is dreaming a dream, and we are it. We are it. The beloved creatures through which the Creator shows up in the material world. We are divinely ordained to be the hands, the feet, the voice, the eyes, the ears, the heart of the benevolent God. I noticed in some religions, people like to think of the minister or the priest as the one who is ordained to do those things. Not so. We all are. Wow, imagine what the world would be like if most people realized this. But though this is what we really are in our essence, sometimes it's kind of hard to tell by looking at us and watching what we do, isn't it? We can be as different from God's idea of us as the egg lying in its nest is from the majestic eagle soaring upwards on a current of warm air. Like the yolk of the egg contains the genetic code for the eagle, our essence contains the genetic code for divinity. But like the unhatched eagle, we are imprisoned in shells of our own. Our shells are hardened, outdated attitudes and behaviors which we show to the world. This is our personality, the external of us. And because our personality can express itself in so many ways, we can have a difficult time actually knowing what we really are. The thing is, we are much more than human beings. We are made of God's substance. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Just as it is natural for an eagle egg to become a magnificent bird, so all the forces of the universe are directed toward nurturing us into our full potential. If an eagle could see, it would gaze. If an eagle egg could see, it would gaze in awe at a soaring eagle, thinking, I'll never be able to fly like that. Eggs can't fly. That's right. Eggs cannot fly and never will, but eggs can hatch into eagles. So my question for us today is, why don't we hatch? Why do we seem so stuck? To understand, we have to take a look at our threefold nature, that we are spirit, soul, and body. Our spirit is fueled by a constant stream of inspiration, wisdom, and power. It's the part of us that is conscious of our oneness with God. From this awareness flows an infinite supply of unformed substance, divine ideas containing all the information we need to grow and prosper. What we need to realize is, despite how we might feel at any given moment, the flow of this substance never stops or slows, never dries up. How could it? Its source is God itself. So why are we not overflowing with abundance in every area of our lives? Think of it this way. If you were standing in front of a waterfall holding an empty cup, how much water could you actually walk away with? No more than the cup can hold, right? The waterfall may surge thousands of gallons per second, but we're only able to receive the amount of water that will fit into our container. For some of us, that container is a teaspoon. For others, it's a tanker truck. God in us, our spirit, is the waterfall. The container is our soul. The soul is our consciousness, the sum total of our thoughts and feelings and values and memories. The soul's job is to mold the divine substance that flows from spirit into whatever is needed to support our well-being. Yet remember, the soul can only use the amount of substance it can accept. For example, while we may know and understand that love is always freely flowing from spirit, if in our soul we do not feel worthy of love, then we cannot experience love in our lives. A low sense of self-worth is like standing in front of the waterfall with a tiny, leaky cup. Think about this for a minute. The soul is the entire mind, both the conscious mind where thinking and reasoning take place, and the unconscious mind where feelings and memories reside. Until we integrate, embrace, accept the second principle for ourselves as part of our credo, these feelings, attitudes, and memories will determine the whole of our self-worth, which in turn determines the amount of God's substance we can use in our lives. When our soul is aligned with and under the direction of the God-like spirit within us, we become a tanker truck. And that is not a statement about weight. We become a spiritual tanker truck. Spirit is always giving because that is its nature. But if we're to have a prosperous, joyous life, the gifts of spirit must be free to flow unhampered by fears, worries, negative beliefs, and feelings of unworthiness. The soul is pivotal. It has the awesome ability to turn either toward spirit or toward the negative messages bombarding us from outside us and from inside us. So it stands to reason that to go from a teaspoon to a tanker truck, we need to develop the ability to pivot away from the darkness and toward the light. Practicing this is the real work of transformation and the reason this community and others like it exist. I often hear people say, "But I'm just me," or "That's just the kind of person I am," or "That's just how I feel," as though these statements were satisfactory explanations for limiting thoughts, feelings, and behavior patterns. The life-changing good news is that each one of us has the ability to choose to turn toward the light at any time. Yes, it takes willingness. Mainly the willingness to give up the ego's prayer, which says, "Not God's will, but mine be done." But I don't always know which way is toward the light, you might say. I'm not always sure what is best for me and the others in my life. This is why our credo and the values that issue from it are so important. If we don't know what we are, if we don't know what principles we stand on, we are going to be unsure where the light is. We are rudderless, tossed about by the emotion of the moment, unable to make important decisions from an authentic place. See, our values are not our beliefs. They are more akin to our ethics. Though they guide the do's and don'ts of our lives, they do not come from a rigid or moralistic place. And contrary to our story, they cannot be forced upon us. As children, we may have been conditioned to accept someone else's values, but as adults, it is our responsibility to choose our own values based on what we know ourselves to be. Ultimately, and this has maybe answered a lot of questions I've had over the years, we can never be happy or prosperous when we're acting outside of our values. It's like our rudder is broken, and sooner or later we will get lost. To understand what values are operating within us, we just need to look at our lives without judgment. Notice how you typically handle a conflict, what activities you prioritize, how you spend your time and money, what business and relationship decisions you make. These patterns reflect your values. And as they say at Aham, tell yourself the truth about these things. No one else needs to hear it or know it, but it's important that you do. The second principle tells us that our core essence is goodness and love. Are the values driving your life reflections of what you are or what you are not? Are they guiding you toward the life you truly desire? People whose values reflect the divinity within them feel good about themselves. Security, wisdom, strength, inner peace, self-love, abundance, all flow from the soul that is alive with the light of spirit. The third aspect of human beings is, of course, the body. And a lot of times we think of the body as this shell that we live in. But the body is more than that. The body also includes all the other the physical manifestations, material manifestations of our lives. They are all, this shell included, reflections of our consciousness. Think of a sculptor standing before a block of stone. Thousands of different possibilities are contained within that stone. What will emerge ultimately will reflect the soul of the sculptor. It has to. What else could he or she possibly sculpt? In much the same way, the soul sculpts our body and all our affairs. They are our thoughts, attitudes, feelings, and values formed into cells and tissue and bone and circumstances. The extent to which our body and affairs are in tune with our spirit and soul is a degree of abundance that shows up in our world. Now, does attunement mean that I will never make a mistake, lose my temper, get sick, have an accident, or lose a loved one? No, but it does mean that while I may experience pain, I need not suffer. And if I should find myself suffering because I have somehow disconnected from my true self, which is the cause of all suffering, all I need to do is regain my footing. To regain my footing is step back, go within, and remember what I really am. Because we are spiritual beings who sometimes struggle with our human experience, thank God we are amazingly resilient. I think resilience is perhaps my favorite word, at least for now. Because when you think about it, it's really the whole ball of wax. And this is the awesome power of the first and second principle. Every single one of us has or will face adversity at one time or another. But knowing God is absolute good and unconditional love, and knowing that we are also absolute good and unconditional love, that's our core essence, we can return to peace in an instant of awareness. In unity, we call the divine within us the Christ consciousness. You may have heard that. This consciousness has a voice, and that is a voice that always speaks the truth. It's not loud and raucous like the voices outside of us. It is soft and clear and consistent. The Christ voice says, I am love and so are you. I have written your purpose on your heart. Trust it. My power is within you. Rely on it. Abundance is your birthright. Accept it. And remember, you are much more than you think you are. These are the things the Christ voice says. Any inner voice that tells you you are bad or useless or unworthy or not enough is the voice of the ego speaking out of its woundedness. It is not telling you the truth, but it needs your love. Place your ego and all those painful messages on the altar of your heart, and the Christ within you will comfort and quiet them. I leave you this morning with some of the most beautiful and powerful words ever written. They surely come from Walt Whitman's Christ voice, and they are taken from his epic poem, Song of Myself. Swiftly arose and spread around me the peace and knowledge that pass all the argument of the earth. And I know that the hand of God is the elder hand of my own. And I know that the Spirit of God is the eldest brother of my own. And that all men ever born are also my brothers, and the women my sisters and lovers. And the essence of all creation is love. And so it is. God bless you.